Hello, everyone. This is DJ, and this is CG Talks, the podcast where CG guys talk about CG, which is, of course, computer graphics in all its shades. And today I have a very special occasion, a very special guest with us today, Brian Kouhi from Toronto, Canada, an animator originated from Iran, but with a very impressive experience working on big titles like Maya and the Three, which you may have watched on Netflix recently. Founder of 3D Animation Hub YouTube channel, where he publishes tutorials and all animation related stuff, and entrepreneur who has recently launched an animation course mentoring platform, toanimate.ca, which aims to jumpstart people's animations careers using Blender. Am I correct?
Wow, you nailed it. I should hire you to do all my intros as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brian Kouhi.
Cool. Thank you very much for that introduction. That was great. Yeah, no, I don't think you missed anything. So I guess the podcast's over. You got everything.
Okay, so let's dissect it to little bits and hopefully provide some interesting stuff for our audience, and so that they can know you better, your story. Mm-hmm. So let's maybe start from the very beginning and rewind to your childhood and ask the question, what made you want to become an animator? Like, is it something you saw, or like a movie or something, maybe some other superhero origin story of yours?
Yeah. Okay, so, nice to meet you guys, whoever's watching. To start back, I think just from a very young age, I was interested in art, and everyone's got their own origin story, and so mine's no different. Especially for people in art, I always like to draw, and I would like fill up sketchbook after sketchbook after sketchbook of drawings. But being from Iran and like careers there being very, very much like linear, you have lawyer, you have engineer, and disappointment. Those are like your three options. And doctor, lawyer, engineer, and disappointment. So at around like around 7 or 8, I pretty much had to put away all drawings and everything art related that I was extremely interested in, and just focus on school. And yes, from that early of an age, like education there is crazy. So I had to like solely focus on school, but that didn't stop me from doodling and whatnot. And I remember I had a very big interest in filmmaking, entertainment, and I was really interested in certain cartoons, TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was a huge one for me. But I do remember like just staying up like super, super late watching this documentary on how films were made. And I think it was like every Friday on one of the channels, I would stay up until 1 a.m. as like a 9-year-old just watching how films were made. And so I think, the interest does come from a very, very young age. That being said, I didn't really get to do anything about it until maybe later in high school here in Canada, where at about 17 or 18 is the age you kind of decide what you want to do at school and where you want to go. So that's kind of when I was like, you know what, I keep like all my teachers keep telling me to stop drawing and taking my sketchbook away, and at the same time, my parents want me to be this one thing, and I'm interested in art. So I started looking up, okay, what can I do with art as a career? And so that's kind of where my journey began. I went to OCAD University. I got my bachelor's in fine arts, and then I went to Sheridan's postgraduate program for computer animation. And that's where I really, really learned and understood like the capabilities of 3D and of animation, and just like learning the software, learning about the industry, and just working my butt off like 80 to 90-hour weeks for a year, and making a short film there from scratch. And that kind of jump started my career. So that's the short version.
Yeah. Seeing like your kind of began, as you said, in the late high school, and you're pretty kind of, I would say, you're young with an impressive experience, so to speak, in
Thank you.
working
Thank
for
you.
working already for kind of big titles. And um, mm, I wanted to ask
Productions.
how did it, what did it take to get a job in the industry? Right, you said about
Sure.
your short film, and of course the educational path, but what did it take to get that first job and then
Yeah.
the bigger ones?
Yeah. Yeah. So after finishing OCAD, OCAD stands for Ontario College of Art and Design, and a university because it was a college turned to university. After OCAD, I spent 4 years learning, getting my Bachelor of Fine Arts, but I felt like I didn't really learn anything to help me get a job in what I had a degree in. And so I was very disappointed with the institutional educational system. And so my last hope was kind of Sheridan. And Sheridan, mind you, is extremely hard to get into. And I actually applied 4 years prior for the 4 year program, and I didn't get in. And so I still had that like voice in the back of my head saying that you need to go to Sheridan. And so I started putting my demo reel together, and I pushed the other voice that was saying no more school because school sucks and it doesn't teach you anything. So I put that voice away, and I decided to go into more debts and go to Sheridan. But luckily that really paid off because you know it's like the song from Mulan, "Make a man out of you." Sheridan made an animator out of me. Um, it was I think it was less about like teaching me animation because there wasn't a lot of like animation related things taught, at least in the postgraduate program. But it Sheridan, I think, taught me to work really hard and learn and like learn how to learn because learning is a skill by itself. So I think those two just giving me like a work ethic and like teaching me how to learn. Those two like really helped me, and like I worked my butt off during Sheridan. Same with everybody else. In my almost everybody else in my class. We even had sleeping bags some nights under the desk at school, and we would kind of hide from security guards working on our films, just hiding from the security guards, and then coming back, continue working that night, and then sleeping under the desk and waking up for morning classes. Um, but I think going to Sheridan and like learning how to make a film from scratch, going through all the different steps of a production, learning that I think was very essential. And so I just have like a broad understanding of how it all works. And that also made me realize that, what, animation is what I'm most interested in out of all these different options. So I think, institutional schools, depending on where you go, it could be hit or miss. But I think I'm going to go on a little tangent, and I'll come back to your question. I think if you know what you want to do, if you really know what you want to do, and let's say you want to be an animator, and you want to be an animator, I think online school might be a better option. But if you're interested in 3D in general, but you don't exactly know what that means and what you're interested in exactly, then maybe you can go to an institutional school where, they teach you everything. So, they teach you about storyboarding and modeling and rigging and animation and rendering and lighting and all that stuff. But if you already know what you want to do, I think going to an institutional school might not be the best use of your time because you'll be spending a lot of time learning stuff that you're not actually interested in. Now, back to the question of how I got my first job. Sheridan actually has an industry day, which is a day at the end of like the graduation where they bring people hiring, like from recruiters from studios. They bring them in to look at student work, and so that's what I did. I showed my work, and then I met the recruiter at Guru Studios, which is the studio that makes Paw Patrol. And it was interesting. We got into a conversation. She said that the recruiter said that she liked my film, and I was like, cool. And then I think 2 days afterwards, I still hadn't heard anything from her. She did tell me to apply, but I didn't hear anything from her afterwards. So 2 days later, I knew there was an event in Toronto where it was about VFX event where visual artists and recruiters would go to it. Me and a few other students decided to go, and just my luck, she was there again, the same recruiter, and she recognized me. She was like, "Hey, Brian, oh, did you send in your whatever?" And we got into another conversation, and then she told me, "Yep, definitely send your reel. I'll be taking a look later tonight." And I was like, "Oh crap, okay." So I went home and I sent her my stuff, and about a day or two later, I actually got a call to come in for an interview, and that was me getting my first job at the industry. So yeah, so I think networking and just working my butt off kind of worked out in the end to get my first job.
Mm-hmm. So you also mentioned that in the very beginnings of your interest in art, and you were drawing, filling sketchbooks, just like every kid interested in art in general. And
Yeah.
I would like to know, when starting an animation career, do you think that it's easier? Like historically, animation started as a 2D medium, right, with drawings, and is it easier to start with 2D animation, or 3D is easier to grasp, like for a beginner, for someone starting out?
Okay, so I think 3D is easier. No, I'm pretty sure 3D is easier because for 2D, not only do you need the technical skill, but you need immense artistic skill. And if you've tried art, and if you are an artist, you know that you never just know art. You have to constantly practice, constantly get better. It's not a skill you just learn. It's a skill you constantly have to keep learning. So, you constantly have to be working on your drawing skills. But in 3D, for 2D, you have to work on your drawing skills and animation. In 3D, your job is animation. So creating the character and giving the character bone structure for you to animate, that's all taken care of by someone else. So what you're responsible for is just the movement of the character. And, you're still an artist. You're still making artistic choices like every second of every day. But you don't have to rely on your art or drawing skills to be able to animate a very, very, beautiful shot. If you're a 2D artist, you have to be an amazing at drawing and also amazing at animation. If you're a 3D artist, you have to have an eye for timing and just be a good animator and know how to make appealing shapes. Does it help to know drawing when you're a 3D animator? Yes, it does help, especially if you want to make storyboards and key poses for yourself. You want to draw them out. That will be a lot faster for you, and you'll have a better idea of appealing shapes and whatnot. But it's not a necessity for you to actually be able to draw to be a 3D animator. So I think 3D animation is an easier, more technical, but easier to get into and learn than 2D.
Yeah,
Hope
so
that answers your question.
Exactly. That's a very, very thorough answer. And if you could go back 10 years now, back to and talk to your younger version of you, just starting out, as some of our listeners might be now, what advice would you give to that young man? Would you do something differently, or are you happy with how things turned out?
I am happy with how things turned out. But if I could tell my younger self anything, it would be to kind of work harder, because I think I got my shit together a little bit too late for my liking. So I think work harder. If you're passionate about something, just work hard for that passion. Because I was very kind of like, my mind was like split back then. My mind was split. I was like, oh, do I want to go into concept art? Do I want to go into this, or do I want to go into animation? I wasn't sure. And I feel like I didn't look into it enough. So make sure you know what you like and just work like hell to get it. I think is what I would tell myself.
Yeah, that's, I guess, a problem of many young men just not being exactly sure about what you want to do. And the funny thing is that that afterwards, probably because you have had that experience already. So you kind of know some things, already have experienced some things, and then you really, like, before trying it out, you don't really know if it's
Yeah,
the thing,
of
right?
course. Yeah. That's the saying. You don't know what you like until you try it, right? So if you're very much like in your comfort zone and you don't go out to try things, you're and you don't know what your passion is, then you're never going to know what your passion is unless you actually step out and you know try different things.
Yeah. So if it wasn't animation, what other art form would you pursue?
I was thinking about concept art, but I was looking at it from like a logical standpoint as well. I was like, okay, so there's a lot of artists and there's a lot of artists coming up, and there's a lot of concept artists everywhere, and I noticed that mainly concept art seems to be very freelance like, and it's not like a secure job. So I had this pressure from my parents to find a job that is secure, because they didn't see being an artist as an actual job, right? So I kind of had they didn't fight me on it, but they let me do what I wanted to do. But I had that pressure to find something that was more of a career. So I personally didn't see concept artists being a career. Um, I'm sure it is. I'm sure there's lots of concept artists who it is their career, but it's I feel like it's a lot harder to get into than 3D animation, which is something you studios need a lot of. For example, at my last studio on my under three, I think we reached around 80 animators by the end of the production. That was just one film, and you need 80 animators. The amount of concept artists was probably in like the single digits. So it's just in terms of like numbers, 3D animation made a lot more sense. And I had always liked, creating stories in my head and, envisioning as a child, playing with action figures, just making stories and pretending the characters are alive. So, bringing characters to life, lifeless characters to life was definitely drew me in.